This film was the director's lifelong dream, and he spent over 20 years bringing it to life. Major studios were afraid to take on the project due to its massive budget, and Hollywood stars found it too strange. However, the creators managed to produce an original and successful movie that quickly achieved cult status and continues to impress audiences to this day. Movies Inside Out presents The Fifth Element is a sci-fi action comedy by Luc Besson, conceived in France, filmed in the UK, and financed by the United States. Why did Bruce Willis and Milla Jovovich get their roles only on the second attempt? How did the film almost lose one of its most crucial scenes? What accident nearly set the set on fire? And is there a chance of a sequel? You'll find the answers to these and other questions in our new video. Get comfortable and let's begin. The creation story. The story of The Fifth Element began in the mid-1970s when 16-year-old Luc Besson, struggling with loneliness after his parents' divorce, started creating sci-fi stories that would later form the foundation of the film. Initially, young Besson believed he was writing a novel rather than a screenplay. The story was set in the year 2300, with the main character Zaltman Bleros, later renamed Corbin Dallas, traveling to an alien resort where he met Lilu, who, despite being 2,000 years old, remained young and beautiful. Besson continued refining the script for many years, making significant changes along the way. Eventually, the story evolved into a screenplay. By 1991, the director had completed a 400-page manuscript, intended as a two-part film with an estimated budget of around $150 million. However, realizing the challenges of bringing such a large-scale project to life, he decided to condense the entire story into a single feature-length film.
Are you German?
The French production company Gaumont took on the project. At the end of 1991, Besson began searching for lead actors while also collaborating with comic book artist Jean-Claude Mézières and Jean-Mobius Giraud, who joined The Fifth Element as concept artists. Mézières' work, particularly the comic The Circles of Power, influenced key aspects of the film, turning the protagonist from a laborer into a taxi driver and introducing a futuristic New York setting. Additionally, Besson was likely inspired by the animated film Heavy Metal, which also featured a futuristic New York, a taxi driver, a red-haired woman, and mysterious artifacts. Alongside Giraud and Mézières, 5 more artists worked on the visual design of The Fifth Element. Luc Besson immediately made it clear that he envisioned the film in vibrant colors, as he was tired of the traditionally dimly lit spaceships typical of sci-fi. He also insisted that the future depicted in The Fifth Element should not be so much terrifying and dangerous as it should be fascinating and somewhat humorous. The design team took Besson's vision into account and, over the course of a year, developed approximately 8,000 concept artworks. At the same time, renowned fashion designer Jean-Paul Gaultier was invited to create the film's numerous costumes. The most intriguing character for him was Ruby Rhod, who was originally named Lockrod, a name that appears in both the original script and the later novelization. At the time, Besson envisioned musician Prince for the role, and Gaultier specifically designed several eccentric costumes tailored for the artist. In 1992, Prince happened to be on tour in Paris, and Besson decided to offer him the role. However, instead of meeting with the musician personally, he sent Gaultier to the meeting. The designer immediately presented all his sketches, but Prince found them overly strange and feminine. Ultimately, he declined the role, citing a busy concert schedule. However, Prince's refusal was not the biggest issue. Despite the creator's impressive groundwork, French film companies were reluctant to take on a project with a $100 million budget. Besson soon realized that it would be impossible to make such an expensive film in France and shifted his focus to Hollywood. He translated the script into English and sent copies to major movie stars of the time. However, the story failed to generate much interest among producers or actors, and by the end of 1992, Besson was forced to put The Fifth Element on hold. Rather than waste time, the director turned to a less expensive project, Léon, the Professional, starring Jean Reno and Natalie Portman. He wrote the script in just a month and completed filming in 3. The film was met with critical and commercial success, and Besson realized that this wave of acclaim provided the perfect opportunity to return to The Fifth Element.
Good.
Additionally, he gained invaluable experience working with American actors and the executives at Columbia Pictures. Besson revised the script once again, reducing the budget to $90 million, and presented it to Columbia, which finally agreed to finance the project in collaboration with Gaumont. Casting. In the early 1990s, Luc Besson began searching for actors for the lead roles. Initially, he envisioned his longtime friend Jean Reno as Corbin Dallas. However, at the time, producers didn't consider him famous enough to carry a blockbuster, so Besson shifted his focus to American stars. Besson sent copies of the script to Mel Gibson and Bruce Willis. Gibson declined immediately, while Willis showed some interest. However, due to the failure of his previous films, Hudson Hawk and Billy Bathgate, he was hesitant to take risks. Studio executives also no longer saw him as a guaranteed box office success. After production was put on hold and the budget was reduced, Besson began considering lesser-known actors for the lead role. But by a stroke of luck, Bruce Willis rejoined the project just as he had regained his star status thanks to Pulp Fiction. One day, Besson happened to meet Willis in a restaurant and mentioned that he was working on The Fifth Element again. He also explained that due to financial constraints, he was looking for another actor to play Corbin. However, Willis said that if he liked the revised script, they could make a deal. Besson sent him the screenplay, and Willis immediately agreed.
I didn't come here to play Pumbaa on the radio. So tomorrow from 5 to 7, you're gonna give yourself a hand. Green?
Interestingly, his contract included not only a modest base salary, but also a percentage of the film's profits, which ended up earning him far more than a standard paycheck. Besson had no doubt about casting Gary Oldman as Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. They had previously worked together on Léon, The Professional, and Besson considered him one of the best actors in the world.
Zorg here. No.
Oldman accepted the role without even reading the script, seeing it as a way to repay Besson for helping finance his directorial debut, Neil by Mouth. Interestingly, both Willis and Oldman turned down roles in Con Air to work on The Fifth Element. Finding the perfect actress for Lilu, however, proved much more difficult. In the early 90s, Besson had offered the role to Julia Roberts, and later to Elizabeth Berkley. Roberts wasn't interested in the project, and after Showgirls flopped, studios refused to work with Berkley. Besson then organized massive casting calls in Paris, London, and Rome, with around 3,000 actresses auditioning. From them, 300 were shortlisted and personally screened by Besson. Amusingly, for each candidate, the director had a unique challenge: to flawlessly pronounce Lilu's full name, Lilu Minai Lekatariba Lamanachai Ekbate Sebat. Ultimately, Besson chose Milla Jovovich, who was returning to acting after touring for her debut music album, The Divine Comedy. However, she only secured the role on her second attempt. At her first audition, she wore an inappropriate outfit with heavy makeup and was extremely nervous. Besson was unimpressed and turned her down. But a few weeks later, they ran into each other at a hotel in Los Angeles, where the director saw Jovovich in casual clothes and without makeup. He immediately invited her to audition again, and this time she nailed it.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
The role of Diva Plavalaguna was originally intended for an actress who ultimately couldn't participate in filming. As a result, the director asked his then-wife, actress, director, and screenwriter Mai Wen, to take on the role.
You must give her the stones.
Who?
The fifth element. The supreme being sent to Earth to save the universe.
However, by that time, their relationship had been deteriorating, and during filming, the couple broke up, with Besson starting a romance with Milla Jovovich. The role of Father Vito Cornelius went to Ian Holm, who was previously known for playing the android Ash in Alien.
He's a she. You noticed that, huh? Yes.
General Monroe was initially considered for Kevin Costner, but the role ultimately went to Brian James, known for supporting roles in Ridley Scott's Blade Runner and Paul Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood.
If you want out, you're going to have to learn to develop those communication skills.
After Prince turned down the role of Ruby Rhod, Jamie Foxx was also considered. Besson liked him but thought he was too muscular for the character. Eventually, the part was given to comedian Chris Tucker, who had gained recognition from the film Friday. Tucker, by the way, wasn't at all intimidated by Gautier's eccentric costumes.
Go back, man. I have no fire. I have no matches. I see nothing matches. I have no matches. I saw smoking in it. If I knew.
Billy Masterson was played by Luke Perry, who had won over audiences with the long-running series Beverly Hills 90210.
Father, they've killed the professor. They're monsters.
I explained everything. Billy.
With them?
The role of the priest was given to John Bennett, while Professor Piccoli was played by John Bluthal, and Professor Magtilberg by Christopher Fairbank, all of whom had mostly appeared in minor roles in lesser-known films. The role of President Lindbergh was given to character actor and wrestler Tom Lister, while General Statter was played by John Neville, known for The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. David was played by Charlie Creed Miles, who also appeared in Gary Oldman's directorial debut. Zorg's right arm was portrayed by trip-hop musician Tricky, while his left arm was played by Singaporean actor Ivan Heng. A cameo appearance as the unlucky robber who tries to break into Corbin's apartment went to Luc Besson's friend, actor, and director Mathieu Kassovitz.
That's a very dangerous gun. Maybe you better let me hang on to this one for you, huh?
The identity of the voice actor for Finger, Corbin's phone contact, remains a mystery to this day. Rumors suggest it might be Vin Diesel, Benicio del Toro, or Bokeem Woodbine, but there is no official confirmation. The filming process. Production on The Fifth Element began in early August 1995. Initially, Luc Besson planned to shoot the film in France, but he couldn't find a studio large enough to accommodate the film's scale. As a result, he moved the production to the famous Pinewood Studios in the suburbs of London, where 7 sound stages were used to build the massive sets. Principal photography officially began in late January 1996 and lasted 21 weeks. Most of the scenes were shot on studio sets, but some sequences were filmed on real locations. For example, the opera scene was shot at Covent Garden, while the Egyptian desert scenes were filmed in Mauritania. The film's numerous visual effects were handled by 3 teams of specialists. To create the futuristic New York City, the designers used a combination of CGI and practical miniatures, while all the flying vehicles, except for Corbin's taxi, were computer-generated. The towering skyscrapers were actually large-scale models standing over 20 feet tall. A team of 80 workers spent 5 months building the detailed miniatures, with the most challenging aspect being the intricate window designs and interior details. Jean-Paul Gaultier designed approximately 900 costumes and personally checked them before filming. Besson considered the characters' outfits to be one of the most important elements of the Fifth Element's universe and spared no expense. Each costume designed by Gaultier reportedly cost around $5,000. The iconic bandage costume worn by Lilu was conceived at the last minute by Besson and Jovovich. They struggled to find an outfit that would look both striking and practical for a character being examined by scientists. They ultimately settled on a bandage-like design, which Gautier quickly brought to life, drawing inspiration from Frida Kahlo's painting The Broken Column. The explosion in Fhloston Paradise's main hall was created entirely with practical effects and became the largest indoor explosion ever filmed for a movie. The sequence was shot in Pinewood Studios' legendary 007 stage and involved real explosives, mannequins, and various mechanical rigs to control the debris. Incidentally, the same stage was previously used for films like Aliens, Mission Impossible, and Event Horizon. However, the explosion scene didn't go smoothly. The fire triggered by the blast got out of control and took about 30 minutes to extinguish. The film featured a variety of weapons, the most interesting of which was Zorg's ZF-1 gun. Functionally, it was a hybrid of a flamethrower, grenade launcher, machine gun, and more.
My favorite.
With several copies created for the film. Most of them were props, while disguised Kalashnikov rifles were used for action scenes. Interestingly, Corbin and Zorg do not share a single scene, and Gary Oldman began filming his parts when Bruce Willis was already finishing his work. The divine language spoken by Lilu consists of 500 words and was invented by Besson, though Milla Jovovich significantly enriched it with new expressions. Interestingly, Besson and Jovovich regularly corresponded in the invented language, and by the end of filming, they could confidently converse in it. Lilu's iconic hairstyle was initially meant to be natural, and at the beginning of filming, makeup artists dyed Jovovich's hair bright orange. However, her hair quickly grew out and faded, requiring constant touch-ups. Eventually, her hair became severely damaged, and she continued filming wearing a wig. During the concert on Fhloston Paradise, Diva Plavalaguna performs the aria Il Dolce Suono from Gaetano Donizetti's opera Lucia di Lammermoor. The vocal part was performed not by Maiwen, but by Albanian opera singer Inva Mula. Initially, Besson planned to use Maria Callas's 1950 recording of the aria, but the audio quality was insufficient. Interestingly, some fragments of the score, modified by The Fifth Element composer Eric Serra, could not be performed by a human voice. Mula had to sing certain notes separately, which were later mixed and processed on a computer. The filming of the Diva's aria scene was even more complicated. Maiwen had to stand on stage on 14-inch stilts, wearing a tight-fitting dress made of foam and latex without a single seam. The entire film crew was extremely nervous during the scene, worrying whether the latex would peel off, whether Maiwen would twist her ankle, or even fall into the orchestra pit. Everything ended well, but this iconic scene almost didn't make it into the final cut. In the 1990s, movies were still shot on film, and damage to film reels was one of the biggest nightmares for filmmakers. At one point, while transporting the reels of the completed film, some of them fell from the plane onto the tarmac and ended up under the wheels of a loader. Fortunately, not all material was lost, and editors managed to assemble the scene with Plavalaguna from the surviving footage. By the way, Bruce Willis's look of amazement during the Diva's performance was genuine. At that moment, he heard the aria for the first time and saw Maiwen in full makeup. Another unscripted reaction from Willis can be seen in the scene where Corbin meets Lilu. Besson did not warn the actor about what Jovovich would say, and when she started speaking in the divine language, Willis was genuinely surprised. The actors in the massive Mondoshawan costumes had special mini-monitors to help them navigate their surroundings. Interestingly, it took a team of 3 people about 20 minutes to dress a single Mondoshawan. In Lilu's fight scenes, an artificial leg was used because Jovovich simply could not physically perform some of the kicks. You can also notice that many Mangalores aboard Fhloston Paradise wear special glasses. This was not a deliberate creative choice. Rather, it was a way to save time and money on applying intricate eye makeup. Interestingly, the name Plava Laguna translates from Croatian as Blue Lagoon. One theory suggests that it references a resort in Croatia where Besson often vacationed as a child. Another theory links it to the film Return to the Blue Lagoon, in which a 15-year-old Jovovich starred. The film also contains a reference to Star Wars. Major Iceborg's hairstyle closely resembles Princess Leia Organa's, while Cornelius's outfit is clearly inspired by Obi-Wan Kenobi's robe. The date on Corbin's alarm clock, March 18th, is actually Luc Besson's birthday. Additionally, the number 5 appears frequently throughout the film, beyond just the title and the concept of the 5 elements. For example, Corbin has 5 points left on his license.
You have 5 points left on your license.
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Zorg deactivates the bomb with 5 seconds left on the timer, and Ruby Rod's show starts at 5 o'clock. Movie mistakes and funny errors. Now, let's count all the bloopers and inconsistencies left behind by the creators of The Fifth Element. Even in this bright cosmic world, there was room for unexpected details. Switching boys. The boys standing outside the Egyptian temple look completely different from the ones inside. No surprise, since the exterior scenes were shot in Mauritania, while the interiors were filmed in the UK. Looks like the boys were cast locally. Teleporting camel. A white camel sits second from the left, but a few seconds later, it's suddenly at the edge. This camel clearly has teleportation skills. Disappearing stick. A stick unexpectedly vanishes from a boy's hands when the camera angle changes. Looks like someone from the crew needed it for another scene. Traveling bowl. The professor holds a bowl in his right hand, then a brush, then the bowl again. Seems like even the professor doesn't know what he's holding. Glowing ship. The ship blocks the light above the temple, yet the professor can still see his workspace perfectly. Must be mood lighting guiding his way. Handprint on the idol. There's a handprint on the idol's shoulder, even though no one touched it. Inconsistent dates. The story starts in Egypt in 1914, and according to the Mondo Shawan, evil will return in 300 years, meaning 2214. But the screen says 300 years later, and Corbin's alarm clock reads 2263. Looks like someone miscalculated. A timeless Mauser. Billy is armed with a 1932 Mauser pistol, even though the year is only 1914. Billy must be a time traveler. Jumping tripod. The tripod behind Billy stands, then falls, then stands again. It seems to have a mind of its own. Fire in space. The Mondo Shawan ship catches fire, in the vacuum of space. Apparently, this is a new type of cosmic combustion that defies physics. Chromosome confusion. Professor Machtilberg claims that more chromosomes mean a more advanced organism. But some plants have more chromosomes than humans. Predictable glass. Before Lilu breaks the glass, cracks are already visible. That's some very foresighted glass. Disappearing train tracks. A train rushes past Lilu on the skyscraper wall, but when she decides to jump, the tracks suddenly vanish. That must be a phantom train. Self-healing label. The word automatic on the button is half erased, but a few minutes later, it magically reappears. Must be a self-repairing button. Film crew reflection. During the chase scene, a crew member's reflection is visible in Corbin's windshield. Looks like someone from the team wanted a ride along with the heroes. Mysterious McDonald's card. A card appears on McDonald's boxes out of nowhere, then vanishes just as suddenly. A limited time use card, perhaps? Reverse text. Text on police car screens is displayed in mirror image. Maybe it's some kind of new encrypted communication system. Lilu's knowledge from the future. Lilu asks for Vito Cornelius by name, even though she's been asleep for 5,000 years and couldn't have known him. Maybe she learns in her sleep. Must be audiobooks. Corbin's verified information. Corbin brings Lilu to Cornelius, saying there's no record of her in police databases, even though he never had time to check. He must have a special instinct for information. Lilu's shifting tattoo. Lilu's tattoo appears on her right arm, though it was originally on her left. Also, the design differs from the hieroglyphs on the wall. Looks like the tattoo decided to adjust itself. Zorg's mood sounds. A metallic clank first comes from Zorg's right leg, then from his left.
Excuse me, sir. The council is worried about the economy heating up. They wonder...
Even the sound decided to mix things up. X-ray invisibility error. Zorg claims the ZF-1 is invisible to X-rays, even though its titanium casing should be detectable. Looks like even Zorg doesn't know all of his weapon's secrets. Mirrored control panel. The cockpit control panel suddenly flips its reflection. Must be a futuristic, reversible panel. Zorg's right hand won't stop. The right hand of Zorg should have been blown up in the explosion, yet he somehow remains standing. This guy just refuses to quit. Corbin's vanishing jacket. Corbin goes after Lilu wearing a tank top, but moments later, a jacket appears on him. That jacket must have teleportation powers. Ruby Rod's disappearing entourage. The group standing behind Ruby Rod suddenly vanishes between shots. They must have decided to take a break at the worst possible moment. Zorg's suitcase disappears. Zorg leaves his suitcase by the door, but in the wide shot, it's gone. Seems like the suitcase wanted to hide from the camera. Corbin's self-destructing sleeves. Corbin's shirt sleeves are intact, then a second later, they're almost gone. Maybe the shirt got tired of all the action. Hands up and down again. When Corbin surrenders to the Mangalores, he raises his hands, then lowers them, then raises them again between shots. Must be his signature greeting. Vanishing bodies. The bodies that should be lying at Zorg's ship entrance disappear within seconds. Maybe they have fast vanishing skills too. Shape-shifting stone. Corbin picks up a stone with horizontal stripes, but when he places it down, the stripes are vertical. Mysterious shadow. As the evil sphere approaches Earth, a strange shadow appears in the foreground. Perhaps an unidentified cosmic object. Weather on demand. The sunny weather over the temple suddenly turns cloudy, but the space view still shows clear skies. In the future, the weather must have a mind of its own. The fantastical universe of The Fifth Element is full of surprises, but little details like these make it even more colorful. Have you noticed any of these mistakes while watching? Deleted scenes and behind-the-scenes moments. Unfortunately, no official collection of deleted scenes was ever released on DVD or Blu-ray. However, hints of them can be found in other sources. For example, in the trailer, there are shots of police officers aiming at an unknown target. This was likely part of a cutscene involving garbage collectors who were supposed to be on strike, which would have explained the mess at the airport. There was also a scene where Cornelius explored a sandy valley in search of the temple entrance. It was filmed both in Mauritania and at a British studio, but was cut just before the final edit because it slowed down the pacing of the film. Additionally, in early versions of the script, the ending was slightly different from the final cut. Instead of the scene with Corbin and Lilu in the reactor, the camera was supposed to fly over Manhattan, showing 2 moons in the sky. It's unclear whether this scene was ever filmed, but it was likely removed early in production. The Fifth Element also underwent some changes after its release. For example, in the original version, the professor fearfully asks the aliens if they are Germans, but in the German dub, he instead asks, Are you from here? From Earth? Moreover, some TV versions cut the suggestive scene between Ruby Rhod and the stewardess, as well as all hints of it during takeoff. On television, Leeloo's exposed chest is also hidden behind a control panel in the laboratory machine, and all strong language is removed. And now, let's take a look behind the scenes of The Fifth Element and enjoy a collection of funny moments from the set. Worldwide recognition. The premiere of The Fifth Element took place on May 7, 1997, at the Cannes Film Festival. Besson's film was chosen as the festival's opening movie, and to mark the occasion, Gaumont built a special hall covering over 9,000 square meters, where a grand event was held featuring a futuristic ballet, a Jean-Paul Gaultier fashion show, and a celebratory fireworks display. Additionally, all guests received the Fifth Element Swatch watches, which served as their tickets to the event. According to various reports, Gaumont spent between $1 million and $3 million on the event, setting a record for that time. The film was widely released on May 9th of the same year, debuting at #1 in France and holding that position for 7 weeks. It also topped the US box office charts for 2 weeks. Besson's movie was a significant box office success, grossing $263.9 million worldwide, with $63.8 million coming from the US market. As a result, The Fifth Element became the 9th highest grossing film of the year globally and the highest grossing film in France, a record that was only broken by The Untouchables in 2011, which earned $426 million on a budget of 9.5 million euros. Additionally, at the time of its release, The Fifth Element was the most expensive European film ever made. 20 years later, Besson set a new record when he directed Valerian and The City of 1,000 Planets, which had a $200 million budget, but ended up being a box office disappointment for producers. Critical reception for The Fifth Element was mixed. Some praised its rich visuals, wit, and impressive costumes, while others criticized it for unsuccessfully imitating Hollywood cinema, calling it outright silly and one of the worst films of the year. Opinions were also divided on Chris Tucker's performance as Ruby Rhod.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ruby Rhod, still alive. Ah! What's wrong with you? Hey!
Some critics considered him one of the film's most striking special effects, while others felt his character ruined the movie. The lead actors spoke positively about the film and working with Besson. However, Gary Oldman openly admitted multiple times that he disliked both his character and the movie as a whole. Despite the mixed reviews, The Fifth Element was nominated for prestigious film awards. The top French award, the César, nominated the film in 8 categories and awarded it Best Director, Best Production Design, and Best Cinematography for Thierry Arbogast, who also won the Technical Grand Prize at Cannes. Additionally, the film won the BAFTA Award for Best Visual Effects, and Luc Besson received the Lumiere Award for Best Director. The Oscars nominated The Fifth Element for Best Sound Editing, MTV nominated it for Best Fight Scene, and the European Film Academy listed it among the contenders for Best Film. The Saturn Awards recognized it with nominations for Best Film, Best Costume Design, Best Visual Effects, and Best Supporting Actress for Milla Jovovich. However, both Milla Jovovich and Chris Tucker were also nominated for the Golden Raspberry Awards, though thankfully they did not win. After the release of The Fifth Element, Luc Besson faced plagiarism accusations. The publishers of Jean Mobius Giraud's The Incal comic book sued him, claiming that the film's visual style was too similar to the comic. They demanded over $20 million in compensation, but the lawsuit was dismissed in 2004, with the resemblance attributed to the artist's unique style. In 1997, a novelization of The Fifth Element was published by Terry Bisson, based on the original screenplay. In 1998 and 2001, video games based on the movie were released, but they failed to achieve much success. Unlike picky critics, audiences fell in love with the film and continue to adore it to this day. The Fifth Element quickly gained cult status, and even a quarter-century later, its style remains fresh and visually stunning. Soon after the premiere, rumors of a possible sequel began circulating. However, Besson crushed fans' hopes by stating that he never planned to make a sequel and had no intention of doing so in the future. The Fifth Element not only became the most successful film in the careers of Besson and most of the actors, but also influenced Besson and Jovovich's personal lives. At the end of 1997, they got married, and the director cast Milla in his next film, the historical drama The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc, released in 1999. However, the movie flopped at the box office, and their marriage ended the same year. After The Messenger failed, Besson stepped away from directing for 6 years, founded his own company, EuropaCorp, and focused mainly on producing and screenwriting. Today, he directs films less frequently than before, and none of his subsequent projects have matched the success of The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis went on to star in several more hits, but his career declined in the 2010s. In 2022, he retired from acting due to progressing dementia. Milla Jovovich continues acting, but has not landed any major standout roles in recent years. Chris Tucker has almost disappeared from the big screen, while Gary Oldman continues to secure interesting roles, one of which earned him an Oscar in 2018. Ian Holm appeared in several major projects after The Fifth Element, but passed away in 2020 due to complications from Parkinson's disease. Other cast members who have since passed away include Brian James, Luke Perry, Tom Lister, John Neville, John Bennett, and John Bluthal, for whom Besson's film remained the most significant work of their careers. Several years after the release of The Fifth Element, Luc Besson expressed regret that he had not waited longer to improve the film's visual effects. However, perhaps the movie's minimal use of CGI is precisely what gives it a special charm that still captivates audiences today. Would you like to see a sequel or a reboot of The Fifth Element?